Welcome to Dr. Josh Axe Show. I am your host, Dr. Axe, and each and every week on this show, we explore the science and principles behind how to grow in your physical, mental, and spiritual health and take your life to the next level. I just got back to Nashville from a trip to Europe, and on today's episode, I'm going to be going through how to stay healthy while traveling, how to keep your kids healthy, how to overcome jet lag, what are the best supplements you should take on everything from a mission trip overseas to just, traveling a few hours to the city, to a city near you. I'll be answering all those questions and a whole lot more on today's episode and really sharing my personal information of exactly what the Axe family does on vitamins, supplements, foods. What do we do when we're eating out and we're traveling? How do you stay healthy then? I'll be answering those questions and more. And by the way, you can submit your questions to me on Instagram. I post question boxes regularly on my story. So follow me on Instagram at Dr. Josh Axe, and you can ask a question. Also, here's a big thing, and I love it when you all do this. You can also send me a voice message to be featured on the show. Just click this link right here if you want to be featured on the show and ask your question via a voice message. Okay, first question, what was your favorite place you went this summer? Well, my favorite place was actually probably Paris this time. We went the week before the Olympics started, and Paris was, let me just say this, by the way, I've been to Paris before, and my first experience of Paris was not the best. I felt like a lot of the servers were rude. I think that they didn't necessarily treat Americans the best. But this time around, we absolutely loved Paris. I went to some exceptional and incredible recipes and restaurants. In fact, I had the best, probably 2 brunches of my life. One of the restaurants was called the Hardware Society. And they have 3 locations in the world, one in Australia, I think it's Melbourne, one in Barcelona, Spain, and one in Paris, France. And it was exceptional. And so I highly recommend their muesli and their French toast and their poached eggs, but it was absolutely amazing. So I would say Paris ranked number 1 this time around. We really, really enjoyed it. But also we love Florence, Italy. Florence to us had some of the best food we've ever had in our life. Now, this is my 3rd time I'd been to Florence, and we absolutely loved it. And so I would say, generally speaking, my favorite city in Europe is Florence. But this time around, we love Paris. Now, listen, we love so many cities in Europe. We loved London. We loved Venice. Rome, I love seeing the Vatican. I love the religious art. When I get to see the works of Michelangelo, to me, it is one of the most inspiring things ever. I mean, whether it be, now, by the way, a lot of his works, you can also see some of his works in Florence. But again, I love religious art. And so I love that part of Rome. But outside of that, I'm just gonna be real honest with you, I don't love Rome. It's one of the cities that I probably just am not a big fan of outside of, again, the Vatican and some of the museums. I prefer, some of the smaller cities like Cinque Terre, the Amalfi Coast, Siena, Florence, Lake Como. Those are places I would rather vacation and go in Italy. But Italy as a country is my favorite. We also love Paris, and London was fun too. So, but another thing, I'll just say this is my 3rd trip to Europe, and I traveled. We brought kids this time. And if you're a parent, it makes it really different. Before, Chelsea and I just, as a couple going versus having kids, having a 9-month-old and a 4-year-old. And I was, maneuvering the stroller everywhere. And that had some challenges as well. But overall, we had an absolutely great time in Europe. And I want to share with you some of my favorite things that I did in terms of food on the trip. So if you're going to travel to Europe and ever do a Europe trip, my top cities that I've personally been to would be Florence, Italy, Paris, France, London, England. I would have those as my top 3. Now, I would also say that we did enjoy Venice. Rome, I think if you're going to do Rome, just do it for a day. Go there, see everything you can quickly, But don't, for me, lingering there really, really wouldn't be the best. And then we want to go to Greece on our next trip. I've heard Athens and some of those areas are great as well. And we love the Amalfi Coast and Cinque Terre. So also doing a coastal city might be a good choice. But again, if I would just do two cities on a trip, Florence is my number one, and number two is going to be Paris. And so I hope you eventually, if you've never done one, get to a trip to Europe. And we really thought it through. Maybe I'll post this online, my top maybe 10 to 20 restaurants you should try in Europe next time you go. And Barcelona, by the way, we didn't go there this time, but that's another one. That's probably my number 4 or 5 city. We do love Barcelona as well. All right, next question. How do you stay healthy while traveling? First answer is think ahead. You have to have a plan. And so when we booked our hotels, I tried to book hotels that had gyms. I also tried to pack some snacks when we were going to be traveling on a train or an airplane. For instance, I brought this form of beef jerky like Epic bars and Lineage Provisions, which is like grass-fed beef and bison and some organ meats in it. And then I brought some healthy protein bars for our kids. We brought a lot of things like fruit snacks and date bars and dried fruit. And so we packed some of those things ahead of time. So one, we made a plan. I checked out some healthy restaurants, some juice spots, some other things while we were there. And then again, I looked for gyms. Now, the other thing is we planned to walk a lot. And we walked, there were days we walked almost 10 miles, a day. And so we put in a lot of walking in a lot of these cities, especially Paris and Florence. And so I think that's a really good, a really good thing to do. So we just planned, hey, we walked a lot. Every other day I got in the gym, just did a quick 30 minutes. If we had it there on site, we packed snacks ahead of time. And now listen, also you're on vacation, so have some fun. You're not going to be perfect while you're on vacation. I wasn't. And so we plan ahead. And so to stay healthy while traveling, we plan ahead, and I pack supplements. I do a lot of supplements when I travel, and I bought travel supplement cases. Okay, these plastic pill bottles, I kept those in. I had markers on what each of them were. So the supplements I brought when I was traveling were, I brought a probiotic. I think that's really important that you're really maintaining gut health when you're traveling. So that was the top supplement I brought, and I did about 100 billion CFU a day of probiotics. So that was in one. I also took a multi-organ supplement that had things like liver and kidney and heart in it. So I took that. I did a vitamin B complex. We drank some wine. If you have any form of alcohol, whenever you vacation or travel, the top nutrients you get depleted in are going to be B vitamins, followed by magnesium and zinc. And so I did carry with me a methylated B complex supplement. In addition, I also had some turmeric to keep inflammation low. I also brought, what else did I bring? A couple other things there as well. I packed with me magnesium. If you travel, oftentimes people don't have as regular bowel movements. Okay, traveling does that to you. In Chinese medicine, it's because it's affects your it just affects your digestive system. And so doing about 300 milligrams of a magnesium glycinate or carbonate, which is going to help with bowel movements, that's another really good one to do, and also helps with sleep if you do that before bed. And that's another thing. I brought some things to help with sleep and jet lag as well, which I'll share here because we have another question, I think, coming up. Somebody had a question about how to overcome jet lag, which I'll answer in a minute. But I think generally when you travel, probiotics and a B complex or a multi are at my very top of my list. And then we brought protein powder. So oftentimes, like when you're in Europe, especially Paris and Italy, it's so many pastries, so many carbohydrates. We would go down for breakfast in the morning. And now some of them would have things like, they would have salmon. Some of them would have things like turkey meat. But oftentimes what I would do is I would do some protein powder because everything is so carb heavy in Europe that I would do some plant protein, bone broth protein, and do a shake of that. And then I would go downstairs and do the fruit and do some of the, things. I had a croissant or two while I was there. And so, but again, I would do protein powder and try and get about 40 grams in oftentimes before I'd go down, or I would make sure I was getting something like turkey or meat or salmon or something there for breakfast, and eggs, of course, as well. That was another big one. Did a lot of eggs. So I made sure I got a lot of protein while I was traveling. And so I think if you can kind of keep in mind, try and walk a lot. try and get in the gym, maybe just quick, quick 20-minute, 30-minute workout. Or if you don't, hey, then you're on vacation and that's okay. I did supplements. I got my protein. All of those things helped me stay healthy while traveling. Next question. How do you keep your immune system strong when traveling? I keep getting sick after air travel. Well, this is really common. And by the way, one of the things I noticed early on in my career when I ran my functional medicine practice, and then I started doing a lot of speaking, I would travel to seminars and conferences and speak. And I noticed the only time I got sick was when I was traveling and when I got less sleep. And so really the biggest part of traveling that is going to cause you to get sick is if you're not sleeping well. You're sleeping in a hotel, you got a bad bed, a bad pillow. So here's a few things I do. One, if you are traveling and can, pack your own pillow. Okay, I got like a mini pillow of the brand I like, and I sleep on that, and I'll travel with that, and that really helps. I'm telling you, tremendously, having your own pillow. I also bring with me supplements to help me sleep better. So on this trip, I brought with me CBD oil capsules. I brought valerian root. I brought some time-released melatonin. I brought glycine. I brought L-theanine. I brought a lot of things because I knew, and I've been doing this long enough, over time, I realized if I can get a good night's sleep when traveling, I won't get sick. So that was the biggest thing I did is I did everything I could to get my room dark and cold and try and sleep well. I even brought orange sunglasses or brought blue blockers if I was going to watch anything in the evening. And so that's something I did. In addition, I brought probiotics, and I would, again, 100 CFU. And so I did probiotics. And then here's a few other things you want to do. If you're traveling in the winter, definitely do vitamin D. I would do 5,000, probably like 10,000 IUs of vitamin D a day if you are traveling, and then taking magnesium with it because that's going to help keep you from being constipated. If you take too much vitamin D, it can make you constipated. If you take magnesium, it'll balance that out, and you won't have that issue. The other thing I would say is doing some zinc. That's big. That gets depleted if you travel and drink alcohol. And so I do about 30 to 60 milligrams of zinc, and then astragalus. That's another big one, about 2,000 milligrams. So if you're traveling, if you can do an immune formula, some zinc, some vitamin D, some probiotics, that is going to help tremendously. But also the biggest single reason why you get sick when you travel is you're not getting a good night's sleep. So if you can prioritize sleep when you're traveling, it's going to keep your immune system healthy and keep you from getting sick. Another question, do you have one specific thing you keep on hand while traveling in case someone gets sick? We had this happen at the end of our vacation, right when we were getting to Rome. My 4-year-old, so my wife ended up sleeping with our infant, and then I was with the 4-year-old, and she threw up in bed and we got sick. And so, for kids in particular, we will travel with an immune formula that has zinc and vitamin C and some other food-based nutrients. And so we just have like a kid's immune multi. And that's something we would travel with. Now for Chelsea, who also wasn't feeling the best towards the end, I got her a blend. I got her elderberry. We got a blend of echinacea. We also did a multi with zinc and vitamin D and vitamin C. So we had an immune formula. We also did propolis. That's a compound that's found in honey that has tremendous immune boosting benefits. And that for the most part is what we did. Elderberry, echinacea, vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc. And then you could do even something like astragalus, but we would do that, and those are the sort of things we'll have on hand. Another question: are there any natural remedies for jet lag? Yes. So we were flying over a straight flight through from Nashville, Tennessee to London. And so we left around, I want to say 9:30 p.m., landed around their time around 10:30 a.m. So one thing we'll do is we will try and sleep. Okay. So I took melatonin and wore an eye mask and did my best to sleep on the plane on the flight over. Okay. So that's the first thing. Even if it's just a few hours, you want to try and do that. And then one of the best things to do is when you get off the plane, as soon as you can, take off your shoes, and just find an area of bare ground, grass. Okay. Now, if you're traveling somewhere, you can go on a beach or the ocean, even better. So as soon as you can, spend as much time as you can sitting on the ground, walking on the ground, getting in the water, anything like that is great. Now, typically, if you get there like we did, that first day, we might have done that for a few minutes, but then we had things to do. So we were going around doing everything. I really focused on getting over jet lag that next night and the next morning. And so what I tend to do is, again, do everything I can to get a good night's sleep. And so I don't take much melatonin. I only take melatonin when I travel and for jet lag. And so I took melatonin that first night and also took some things like chamomile, some CBD to get a good night's sleep. And when I wake up in the morning, if I go and get a really hard workout in, I go and do just 45 minutes on a treadmill and I do a mix of some weights, but then a HIIT and interval training and get a good sweat in, that really resets my system. And so I felt like after that good first night's sleep, and sometimes even the night after, maybe I'll do some CBD, try and take some things to help me get into a deeper sleep. That helps. But that's the best thing for jet lag is melatonin, a really, really good workout, eating good, getting a good night's sleep. And then there's a few other things I think are good. I think probiotics and B vitamins are also good for jet lag. Oftentimes that's something that your body's missing. In Chinese medicine, what you want to do is you want to do something called earthing. And earthing is it's getting your bare feet on the ground or getting in the ocean. I mean, those things help tremendously. But there are some herbs that also help with that. Teas that are more grounding and earthing. Ginger tea is one of those teas. Cinnamon is another one, and astragalus. So ginger, cinnamon, astragalus, you can do as tea or supplements. They're very, very grounding. And also certain foods are more grounding. In general, beef is more grounding. Things like sweet potato. So getting a big burger when you get over there or something like that, or lamb chops, those are more earthing foods that help you overcome jet lag as well. All right. I love this question. Is the food in Europe really different? My answer is, for the most part, yes, but more so in a place like Italy than it is London, than it is a place like England. Okay, English food, I'm not that impressed with. I got to be honest. I think American food is generally better than English food. I mean, fish and chips. I'm stereotyping terribly right now, I know, but listen, I will tell you, I think the food in London is very similar to the food in the United States. Now, when you get to France, I think there's another sort of quality of a little bit of a higher quality of we're trying to do more farm to table, but Italy is a whole nother level. I felt like almost every restaurant we went to in Florence, for instance, was locally sourced. I mean, it was, their beef was local. Their basil they were bringing was local. Their food was local. And so I think in Italy, the food was truly different. And I know this from writing books on it, but I also know from visiting there and eating the food myself. They're using more ancient forms of wheat. They are, they're doing a lot of sourdough and fermentation practices. In fact, if you followed my stories as we were traveling through Europe, if you followed me on Instagram, you'll have seen that, I did a cooking class with my daughter. We've done wine tours. I showed you a pizza place where they ferment the sourdough for 48 hours. And a lot of these places, the starters are over 100 years old. So it's pretty amazing what they do over there. So there is more fermented foods, more sourdough, more ancient grain usage, more locally sourced. So yes, I think it absolutely is different. And I just think Italy is the epitome of excellence when it comes to food in terms of the quality of the ingredients, local source. So is it different? Yes. And you'll see that from using an ancient wheat like einkorn over there oftentimes. And then doing a lot of sourdough products. And so, I would say especially the grains are different. The meat is different. The dairy is different. So yes, the food is different. It is more healthy generally in Europe, but I would say it goes sort of like, the United Kingdom. Another step up is France, and another step up from that in quality of ingredients, I think, is Italy is just the best. All right, next question. How do you eat healthy when traveling since you can't have home-cooked meals? Well, my first answer is I eat close to as healthy, but probably not quite as. Okay, so I do my best. One thing, as I mentioned earlier, I pack protein powder. So I will do that. I also, when I'm going down to look at a breakfast buffet, I'm not doing the custard-filled croissant. I am doing typically lots of fruit. Okay, they have fruit salad. I'll do that. I did focaccia bread and I loved that. So I definitely had some bread, but it was really, really good quality. I'll do eggs. They had vegetable juices. They had kiwi juice. They had watermelon juice. They had, fresh pressed orange carrot juice. So I might do some of that as well. So, I mean, overall, you can still, if you're staying at a good quality place, you still can do a really good breakfast. Now, I also did have just a regular croissant with some of their grass-fed butter there, and that was great. So I didn't eat quite as healthy, but I was still fairly healthy. So I think if you're staying at a quality establishment that has good breakfast options, and you're doing research like I do, for instance, I'll go online and look up healthy restaurants Paris. And so we would do the research. I would look at the menus before, and we would sort of plan out where we want to eat. And so I think if you can really plan ahead, that you can go to restaurants that are more farm to table with healthier options when you're traveling. So that's a big part of what we do is we just plan and research ahead of time. Another question, do you still look for organic options? I sometimes I'll look up organic restaurants, healthy restaurants, farm to table. So I'll look for that in different cities, both when I'm traveling within the United States and outside the United States. So I do look for that. However, in Italy, I mean, their standards are just better. So most things are generally organic. They've outlawed glyphosate and other pesticides and chemicals. So generally, you're getting things that are more organic there. So I think just me knowing that was an advantage in being able to know. And I think generally, if you're going to a place that has healthier, more quality ingredients and foods, they tend to be more organic. But listen, I wasn't over there at every restaurant in Italy saying, is your beef certified organic? I'd never asked that. Okay. I was on vacation. I researched and did my best ahead of time. And then I just did my best. And then I didn't think about it anymore. I tried to just enjoy our time with the family. Question, do you have suggestions for how to avoid seed oils? Now, I did at a few restaurants in places like London say, hey, what sort of oil are you using? Because if possible, I asked them to use extra virgin olive oil. Now, if you're in Italy, that's about all they use. Okay. In Paris, it depends. Some of them use olive oil, some of them use canola, some of them use other forms of oils. Okay. But and sometimes I'll ask them to substitute either butter or olive oil for, if they're going to use, let's say, a processed, soybean oil. So I've asked that before at a few places. I'll say, hey, do you know what sort of oil you use at certain restaurants? So I do ask that and say, hey, could you do olive oil for me or butter? So sometimes I do ask for that. Another question, do you have tips for supporting your nervous system and body while traveling overseas? Yeah, to really calm your nervous system, there's a few things that I really like. One thing is magnesium. Magnesium is very calming to your nerve system. It's known as the relaxation mineral. So doing that once to twice daily, 300 milligrams or so, is very, very good. Hops, HOPS, it's the same thing you have that gives some beer its flavor. Hops are very, very calming for your nerve system and good for your liver. So taking a hops tincture or capsules, hop is very, very good. Chamomile tea is very calming to the nervous system. CBD oil is another one. So all of those are going to be good. And my other favorite is L-theanine. Theanine is an amino acid that calms your nervous system. So I do all of those together. They're also good sleep aids, but those are some that you might try, which you'll notice will absolutely support and calm your nervous system. Another thing I like is essential oils. You can do Roman chamomile oil and lavender essential oil, and those are also going to be calming to the nerve system as you travel. Another question, how do you travel with all of your supplements? I take several, and it's a lot of work. I mean, it is work, So again, I bought a travel container and just have a marker on there for what each one was. I had two of them, and I put my supplements in there, and I travel with them. And so that's about all I can tell you is it does take some time to get in there and mark them. But once you do that, it's pretty easy actually for future travels as well, because I generally have the same things I travel with. And once you do it once, it's easier every time after. Another question, do you travel with red light panels? Not typically. Now, I do red light therapy off when I'm home. Okay. Now, I have traveled with red light panels before. I do have a small panel that's about this. That's about I want to say maybe 6 inches by 6 inches. It's not very big. And I've traveled with that before too. But I don't always travel with it. But there are good travel sizes to do. And I think doing that while you're listening to an audiobook for 30 minutes at night before bed has a lot of benefits. I mean, one of the things that my wife and I have really noticed is that when we do our red light therapy in the evening, let's say right after dinner or so, we sleep better. We absolutely sleep better when we're doing red light panels and have more energy the next day. So it is a great thing to do while traveling. I don't always do it. And when we went to Europe, we didn't. But honestly, thinking back, I probably should have, and maybe I would this next time, because we definitely have noticed an improvement in our sleep quality and energy the next day when we're doing red light therapy. And the great benefits of these red light panels is they really help energize and support your mitochondrial health. Your mitochondria are like the powerhouses, the engines of your cell. They give your body more energy, your cells more energy. And so I think it's a great thing to travel with. All right, question here about kids. I'm so curious to know, how do you handle different bedtimes for kids while you travel? Do you sleep in different rooms? Well, we did this. We had a couple rooms this time, just because Europe, if you've ever been there, the beds are they're smaller. Okay. They're definitely smaller there, but sometimes we'll sleep in the same room. Listen, we just do our best. We have our 4-year-old. She doesn't nap. First off, she stopped napping at like 1.5. Okay. She's just not been a great sleeper. Okay. But our 9-month-old, she sleeps a lot better. And so she tends to take a morning nap, an afternoon nap, and then, sleeps, she gets up a couple times at night, but we just do our best. And so generally we don't really have different bedtimes. We all try and get to bed at this. By the way, so I was going to bed at 8 p.m. and I still go to bed at 8 p.m. Okay. I am on my kids' bedtime routine. By the way, I love it. The only difference is I get up earlier. Okay. I go to bed at 8 and I just wake up an hour or two before everybody. And so that's sort of our routine. How do you keep your kids busy without screens during car rides or flights? My wife is amazing. Chelsea is a 10 out of 10 planner for doing this with our kids. And so what we do is Chelsea will bring we have a big bag, and we will bring little toys. She has these Paw Patrol toys and some Disney characters and things like that. And so she'll play with those little figurines herself. That's one thing we'll do. We bring coloring books. So we always have her do that. We have these exercise books where she might try and draw within the line or do markers or stickers in the books, that sort of thing. And then we do have an iPad, and it's not always shows, though. Some of it are learning games and activity games. We have her do more of those than even what she watches on the plane as well. So it's a combo of all of those things together. One thing you might do is just Google, how to entertain kids on flights. And that's what we've done. And we have a whole list of several things that we do that she enjoys. And so we do have an iPad, and she'll watch, maybe a show she likes or do a learning game on there. But we definitely have several other things, including coloring books and figurines to play with and things like that we definitely bring with us on our car rides or plane rides. If you were traveling to a third world country, would you recommend doing some type of detox? Yeah. And I've done several mission trips to third world countries. I've been to China. I've been to in the outskirts, very, very outskirts of China. I've been to Uganda. I've been to Ethiopia. I've been to some other countries as well. So what I did is I did very high dose probiotics, and I was more cautious when I was over there of what I ate. Okay. I'm going to spare you the story. I went on my mission trip to China. It was a Christian mission trip over there. I was doing really good. And then one night we had this thing called hot pot, which, everyone the next day was just a wreck. So for the next couple of days. So I've definitely experienced coming back with, some gut issues from mission trips. And trips to third world countries. So one, again, my advice is just be cautious over there. A friend of mine, Jordan Rubin, when he went, he'll bring, and I'll do this as well, a little bit of clay, or like bentonite clay, and doing a little, like a teaspoon. You could do like a little bit of clay when you're over there, and then probiotics, higher dosage, like 200 billion CFU, anywhere from 100 to even 1 trillion. So do a lot of probiotics when you're over there, a little bit of clay, some magnesium, and those things are all going to be very detoxifying. When you get back, I would say you could do a cleanse, like a little bit of intermittent fasting. You could do bone broth. You can do some veggie juices. But I think if you can do higher dose probiotics, that is typically the biggest thing, in my opinion, that will help with your gut. Okay, now if you come back with a parasite, you might need to do a parasite cleanse. You know, there are herbs like Palo d'Arco and black walnut and wormwood and those things that can help detoxify those parasites. So doing about a 2-week cleanse, you can do that. But for most people, that's not going to be necessary. I would say do 3 servings, so a triple dose of probiotics for about a month. And then try and eat just a lot of steamed vegetables, a lot of soups, a lot of broth. And typically by doing that, you're going to reset your system and be just fine. All right. Well, hey, thank you so much for the amazing questions. Remember, if you want to ask a question for me to answer on a future Q&A podcast here, just follow me at Dr. Josh Axe on Instagram. If you follow my stories, you'll see me constantly posting, questions. And so you can go and submit your question for a podcast episode on one of those stories, and you can leave a voice message as well, and I'll answer your actual audio on the show as well. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in here to the Dr. Josh Axe Show. Remember, each and every week, we're exploring the science and the principles of how to heal and improve your health physically, mentally, spiritually, and take your health and life to the next level. Hey, by the way, make sure to subscribe, like, and share this podcast. You never know. There are people out there who need to know the truth of how to heal naturally. You might just be that person that helps them heal. I'll see you on the next episode.